I'm going to read to you a quote from a radical feminist blog titled Rage Against the Machine, not to be confused with the band. I'm going to read to you a quote from an article that she wrote, and I'll put it in the description box. An article that she wrote in regards to the porn industry and how it's considered rape. And I'm going to read to you the exact quote. The quote starts off by saying, "For those of you new to the site, I call the porn industry the commercial rape industry because the women in porn are paid for consent that they would not otherwise furnish. If someone has to be paid to consent to something, they have not actually consented to it, but have rather agreed not to make their non-consent an issue in exchange for money," end quote. The author, of course, will neglect to mention that everybody who is currently gainfully employed is paid for their consent to services they wouldn't otherwise furnish. You see, the male worker drone working 70 hours a week is being paid to do things he simply does not wish to do in any capacity. He does so because he needs to pay his bills. This isn't rape. What it is a foreign concept to feminists known as money in exchange for labor, otherwise known as work. And women in porn are doing the exact same thing. They are 100% voluntarily providing access to their own bodies in exchange for money. Whether or not it's degrading to women has about as much to do with it as whether or not garbage collecting is degrading to a garbage man. It's his job. Nobody put a gun to his head. He sought out that job, and if he doesn't do it, someone else will, and not a single aspect of it could possibly be defined as rape at all. Now, for the record, I don't think that being a garbage collector is at all degrading, especially when I personally know some of the garbage men in New York City, and I've seen their houses and their cars, and believe me, these men are certainly very happy with their work routine, and I can comfortably make the assumption that not a single one of them considers themselves raped by their employers. There's a demand for waste management and removal. They meet that demand. They are paid well for doing so. There's also a demand in porn. Women meet that demand voluntarily and they are rewarded for it, and much more handsomely than their male counterparts, I might add. You see, women are the essential component to the porn industry. If you could somehow remove every pornographic image or video that included women, the porn industry would essentially collapse, which is the very reason that women in porn are the highest paid employees in that industry. So if anybody is to blame for a so-called degrading proliferation of internet porn, it's women, since common sense dictates that the very existence of internet porn confirms the existence of a massive population of women that are willing to voluntarily engage in activities that these sanctimonious radical feminist parasites have deemed on the authority of their women's studies bigot licenses to be degrading to women. Pointing this out is, of course, coming dangerously close to telling women to take responsibility for their own problems, so instead it's the patriarchy. It's the patriarchy's fault that a completely consenting adult wants to engage in a legalized contractual exchange of sex for money. You see, there are invisible guns floating around women's heads under the employ of the patriarchy that only feminists can see that are forcing these women somehow to meet the demands of the porn industry. Their desire for easy money has nothing to do with the proliferation of porn at all. I mean, it's a worldwide male conspiracy, according to the feminists. Let's define, for the purposes of sanity and honesty, what a rape involving porn, a real rape involving porn, would actually consist of. If a woman decided that she wanted to do porn for money, and in the middle of doing so, she demanded for it to stop, if her demands were ignored, and they kept filming and sex continued against her will, that would be rape. If she did not demand that it stopped, that would be what you call an exchange of cash for services rendered. And the attempt to extend the definition of rape in hopes of hiding the fact that the vast majority of men do not wish to and will never commit the crime of rape will be exposed every chance I get here on this channel. It's a particularly vile and worthless type of human being to be so devoid of character that she has to extract fabricated definitions of rape from a completely consensual exchange of sex just so her sad and hateful little life can have some meaning. And this is the reason feminists like you are the reason that the men's movement is growing every day. You wanted men to just sit there and agree with your fabricated lies and your depictions of us as rapists and violent thugs, and you had and continue to have the state backing you up, and so you reached and reached until your lies are now so odious and so patently false and violent in their nature that men and even some women now are taking notice, and we are intent on the systematic debunking of your vicious, passive-aggressive, victimhood-dependent ideology of violence and hatred against men. So you can run to the Southern Poverty Law Center all you want. You can run to the state all you want. Report us to the state, go ahead. Show everybody just how weak you really are when it comes time to defend your so-called equality movement. Feminism is done. Its time has come. That's all I got to say for now.